My name is Emily Carter, and for 6 years, I believed I had married my best friend. My husband, Daniel, was the kind of man who remembered small things. He knew how I liked my coffee. He knew I hated driving in heavy rain. And whenever I had a bad day at work, he would come home with my favorite chocolate and say, "You don't have to fix everything tonight." We lived in a small house in Ohio. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. We had a little garden in the backyard, 2 old chairs on the porch, and a kitchen where Daniel and I cooked dinner together almost every night. I thought I was happy. But there was one person who never seemed happy about our marriage. Daniel's mother, Patricia. From the beginning, Patricia made it clear that she did not think I was good enough for her son. At family dinners, she would smile politely and say things like, "Daniel used to have such a different life before Emily." Sometimes she criticized my cooking. Sometimes she told Daniel that I was too independent. And sometimes she simply looked at me with a cold smile that made me feel like a stranger in my own family. I tried to ignore it. "She just needs time," I told Daniel one night. He reached across the table and held my hand. "She'll come around," he said. I wanted to believe him. For a while, things seemed normal. Then, about 3 months before everything changed, Patricia started calling Daniel almost every day. Whenever I entered the room, she would suddenly lower her voice. One evening, Daniel was in the backyard talking to her on the phone. I walked toward him with 2 cups of coffee. As I got closer, I heard my name. "Mom, Emily isn't the problem," Daniel said. He paused. "No, I'm not leaving her." I stopped walking. A few seconds later, he ended the call. When he turned around, he looked surprised to see me. "What was that about?" I asked. He forced a smile. "Nothing important." Was Mom talking about me? Daniel looked away. "She thinks we're having problems." "Are we?" He immediately shook his head. "No, we're fine." I wanted to trust him, so I did. But the strange things continued. A week later, Patricia invited us to dinner. During the meal, she suddenly looked at Daniel and said, "You know, sometimes love isn't enough for a marriage." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Daniel stared at her. "Mom, please!" She sighed. "I just want my son to have a peaceful life." I looked at Daniel. He reached under the table and squeezed my hand. That small gesture made me feel safe. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I received a phone call from an unknown number. A man's voice said, "Emily Carter?" "Yes! Who is this?" There was a long silence. Then he said quietly, "You don't know me, but you need to be careful about your husband." My heart started beating faster. "What do you mean?" "I can't explain everything over the phone." "Then why did you call me?" Another silence. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Someone is paying me to make sure your marriage ends." The call ended. I stood frozen in my kitchen, still holding my phone. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. Someone wanted to destroy my marriage, but who and why? That night, when Daniel came home, I looked at him differently for the first time. I wanted to tell him everything. But before I could speak, he placed an envelope on the kitchen counter. "Emily," he said quietly, "we need to talk." And suddenly, I was afraid of what he was about to say. "Emily, we need to talk." Daniel's voice was quiet, but there was something different about it. I looked at the envelope on the counter. "What is that?" He sat down at the kitchen table. "It's a letter from a lawyer." My stomach tightened. "A lawyer? Why?" Daniel rubbed his forehead. "My mom hired one." I stared at him. "For what?" He looked embarrassed. "She wants me to consider a separation." For a moment, I couldn't speak. After everything I had heard that day, I almost laughed because it sounded too unbelievable. "Your mother hired a lawyer to separate us?" "She says she's worried about me." "Worried about you?" My voice became shaky. "She has been trying to break us apart for years, Daniel." "I know." His answer surprised me. "You know?" Daniel looked down at the table. "I've known for a while." I felt tears burning my eyes. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought I could handle her." I stood up. "No, Daniel, you couldn't handle her. And now she's trying to destroy our marriage." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I was angry. I was hurt. But more than anything, I was confused. Then I remembered the phone call. "There's something else." Daniel looked at me. "What?" "Someone called me today." His face changed. "What did they say?" I told him everything. The unknown number, the man's voice, the warning, and the sentence I couldn't stop hearing in my head. "Someone is paying me to make sure your marriage ends." Daniel became very still. "Did he give you his name?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No. He just told me to be careful." Daniel stood up and walked towards the window. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "I think I know who it is." I stared at him. "Who?" "My mother." I couldn't believe he had said it. "You really think she would do something like that?" Daniel slowly turned around. "I don't want to believe it, but a few days ago, I found something strange." He pulled his phone from his pocket. "There's a man who has been following me." My heart dropped. "What?" "I noticed him outside my office twice. Then I saw him near the grocery store." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought I was imagining things." He showed me a photo. It was blurry, but I could see a man standing beside a black car. I remembered something. "That car!" Daniel looked at me. "What?" "I've seen it before." "Where?" "Outside your mother's house." Neither of us spoke. That night, we barely slept. The next morning, Daniel called Patricia. I sat beside him while he put the phone on speaker. "Mom, I need you to tell me the truth." "What are you talking about?" "Did you hire someone to follow me?" There was silence. Then Patricia laughed softly. "Daniel, you're being dramatic." "Did you?" "No." I looked at Daniel. He didn't believe her. "Then why did you hire a lawyer?" "Because I'm your mother, and I can see what you refuse to see." "What do you see?" I see a woman who is slowly destroying your life. My chest tightened. Patricia continued, Emily doesn't belong in this family. I couldn't hold back. I heard that. Patricia suddenly became silent. Then she said something I will never forget. You have no idea what I am capable of doing for my son. The call ended. Daniel stared at the phone. I started crying. Not because Patricia hated me, but because I finally understood something. This wasn't just a family disagreement anymore. Someone was actually trying to destroy our marriage. And whoever that man was, he was already close to us. That afternoon, Daniel received a message from an unknown number. It contained only one sentence. Tell your wife to leave before someone gets hurt. Daniel looked at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in my husband's eyes. Daniel and I sat in our living room for almost an hour without saying a word. The message was still open on his phone. Tell your wife to leave before someone gets hurt. I kept reading it, hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. I'm scared, I finally whispered. Daniel moved closer and took my hand. I am too. That was the first time I had ever heard fear in his voice. The next morning, we decided to report the threats. We went to the police station and explained everything. We showed them the messages and told them about the man near Daniel's office. The officer listened carefully. He told us to save every message and call if the man appeared again. But there was one problem. We had no proof that Patricia had paid anyone. We only had suspicion. For the next few days, Daniel stayed close to me. He drove me to work. He picked me up. He checked the doors twice before we went to bed. Our peaceful little home suddenly felt different. Every sound outside made me nervous. Every unknown number made my heart race. Then, one Friday afternoon, something happened that changed everything. I was leaving work when I noticed the same black car parked across the street. My hands became cold. I quickly walked back inside. I called Daniel. He's here. Who? The man from the photo. Stay inside. I'm coming. 10 minutes later, Daniel arrived. But the car was gone. We searched the area, but there was no sign of the man. That evening, Daniel said something I never expected. I need to talk to my mom. I shook my head. Daniel, please don't go alone. I won't. We decided to visit Patricia together. When we arrived at her house, she looked surprised to see us. What are you doing here? Daniel didn't sit down. Mom, tell us the truth. Patricia crossed her arms. I already told you everything. Then explain this. Daniel showed her the messages. Her face changed, only for a second. But I saw it. She looked nervous. Then she said, I didn't send those. Did you hire someone? No. Are you sure? Patricia became angry. You think I would hurt my own son? Daniel stared at her. I don't know what to think anymore. Patricia looked at me. This woman has filled your head with lies. I felt tears forming in my eyes. I never wanted to fight with you. She laughed bitterly. You took my son away from me. No, I said quietly. Daniel chose to marry me. For the first time, Patricia had nothing to say. Then Daniel noticed something on her desk. A small receipt. He picked it up. It was from a private investigator. The date was only 3 days old. Patricia quickly grabbed it from his hand. "Give me that." Daniel's face went pale. "Mom." She didn't answer. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. "You hired someone," I whispered. Patricia looked at me. Then she said something that broke my heart. "I was trying to save my son." Daniel shook his head. "You tried to destroy my marriage." "I tried to protect you." "From what?" She pointed at me. "From her." I couldn't stop my tears. Daniel stood between us. "Enough!" Patricia began crying. For a moment, she looked less like an enemy and more like a lonely mother who had lost control of her fear. But then Daniel asked the question that changed everything. "If you hired a private investigator, why did he threaten Emily?" Patricia froze. "I didn't tell anyone to threaten her." Daniel stared at her. "Then who did?" Nobody answered. A few seconds later, Patricia whispered, "I hired a man to collect information about Emily, that's all." I looked at Daniel. "Then someone else is behind this." Suddenly, Daniel's phone rang. It was the police. They had found the black car, and they had identified the man. But the name they gave Daniel wasn't Patricia's. It was someone neither of us expected. Someone who knew our marriage very well. Someone who had been close to us from the beginning. Daniel slowly lowered the phone. I could see the fear in his eyes. "Emily." "What?" He swallowed hard. "The man they arrested works for someone we know." My heart stopped. "Who?" Daniel looked at me. And then he said the name that made everything even more painful. "Sarah." My best friend. "Sarah?" I stared at Daniel. My best friend's name sounded impossible. Sarah had been in my life for almost 10 years. She had been at our wedding. She had helped me choose my wedding dress. She had cried when Daniel and I bought our first house. "How could Sarah be involved?" I whispered. Daniel shook his head. "I don't know." The next morning, the police contacted us again. The man they had arrested admitted that he had been paid to follow me and create problems between Daniel and me. But he said something else. He had not been paid directly by Sarah. Sarah had only introduced him to someone. That someone was Patricia. Suddenly, everything became clear. Patricia had hired the investigator. Sarah had helped her. And the threats had gone much further than either of them planned. When Sarah came to our house that evening, I could barely look at her. She stood at the door with tears in her eyes. "Emily, please let me explain." I stepped aside. She walked in slowly. Daniel stood beside me. Sarah looked at him. "I never wanted anyone to get hurt." I felt something inside me break. "You helped my mother-in-law destroy my marriage." Sarah started crying. "I was angry." "Angry about what?" She looked at me. "I thought you were taking Daniel away from everyone." I couldn't believe it. "You were my friend." "I know." "You were supposed to protect me." "I know." She covered her face with her hands. Then she finally told us the truth. Patricia had contacted her several months earlier. She told Sarah that I was controlling Daniel. She said I was changing him. She told Sarah that our marriage was unhealthy. At first, Sarah didn't believe her. But Patricia kept talking. She filled Sarah's mind with doubts. Eventually, Sarah agreed to help. She introduced Patricia to the man who later began following me. But Sarah said she never expected threats. She never expected me to become afraid in my own home. She never expected Daniel to find out. I listened silently. Then I said something I had been holding inside for months. "You didn't have to hate me to hurt me." Sarah looked at me through her tears. "You only had to stop trusting me." She lowered her head. I knew then that our friendship was over, not because I wanted revenge, but because some wounds cannot be repaired by pretending nothing happened. Later that night, Daniel and I sat together in a porch. The same porch where we had once planned our future. "I'm sorry," he said. I looked at him. "For what?" "For not protecting our marriage sooner." I took his hand. "You didn't cause this." "But I should have listened." I nodded. We both should have listened. We spent the next few months rebuilding our lives. Patricia apologized. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was the first time she admitted that her fear had made her do something terrible. Daniel told her that if she wanted to remain part of our lives, she had to respect our marriage. She agreed. Sarah moved away. We never became friends again. At first, I thought losing her was another tragedy. But eventually, I understood something. Not everyone who leaves your life is a loss. Some people leave because they were never meant to stay. Today, Daniel and I are still together. Our marriage isn't perfect. We still disagree. We still have difficult days. But now we talk. We listen. And most importantly, we protect the trust between us. Looking back, I realized the greatest danger was never Patricia. It was the silence between Daniel and me. When we stopped talking, other people had room to control our story. When we started talking again, we took our lives back. I learned that love is not only about holding someone's hand during happy moments. Sometimes love means standing together when everyone else is trying to pull you apart. And sometimes, protecting your marriage means setting painful boundaries with the people you love. I used to think losing people meant losing part of myself. Now I understand something different. Walking away from betrayal didn't make me heartless. It taught me to value myself. And that was the most important thing I gained from the worst season of my life. If you are listening to my story and someone is making you feel like you are not enough, remember this. You do not have to prove your worth to someone who has already decided not to see it. Choose honesty. Choose boundaries. Choose people who respect you. And most of all, never forget that you deserve a love that feels like home, not a love you have to fight to survive.